Mom cut me out of Thanksgiving, so I threw my own at my $4 million ranch. Their calls were immediate. Just Brandon's family this year, keeping it small. That was it. 6 words, no greeting, no signature, just a text from my mother, sitting like a slap across my phone screen. I was in my corner office at the time, 23rd floor, glass windows looking out over downtown Portland, and I swear I felt my stomach drop straight through the marble floor. I stared at it for a while, tried to blink it away, but it was still there. Brandon is my older brother by 4 years, golden boy since birth. He could mow the lawn and they'd act like he invented grass. He stayed in Wyoming, took over Dad's construction company, married his college sweetheart Rachel, had twin boys and a chocolate lab named Duke. Picture perfect Instagram family. Me? I built a tech consulting firm from scratch. Started with nothing but a used laptop and determination. Last year, I sold it for $6.2 million. That's not a brag, it's a fact, but you wouldn't know it from the way they still talk to me like I'm some weird cousin who moved to the city and got too into computers. I'd been thinking about hosting Thanksgiving someday, maybe this year. But after that text, I decided it was happening now. My first time hosting. I'd bought a 42-acre estate outside Bend, Oregon. Custom lodge with exposed timber beams, wraparound porch, private lake stocked with bass, mountain views that looked like a postcard. They didn't even know about it. I was going to surprise them. Instead, I got that text. No call, no conversation, just keeping it small. I didn't reply right away, just leaned back in my leather chair, watching traffic crawl through the canyon between skyscrapers, and felt that same damn ache I'd carried since I was a kid. The one that came with every science fair they missed, every honor roll certificate they shrugged off, every holiday dinner where I ended up helping in the kitchen while Brandon carved the turkey and Dad bragged about the latest construction project. Then I picked up my phone and typed one word. Enjoy. Sent it. I didn't ask why. Didn't push back. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at a table I wasn't even invited to. That's when I made the call. I wasn't showing up this year. Not to sit in silence while they doted on Brandon like I didn't exist. I was done playing the quiet role. The truth is that text from my mom wasn't new. It was just louder. Growing up in Laramie, Wyoming, I got used to being the other daughter. Brandon had his photo in the paper by the time he was 17. Local wrestling star takes state championship. He'd walk into Murphy's Diner on Grand Avenue and get free pie. People slapped him on the back, asked about matches, called him a natural. Me? I was the quiet one. I'd sit in the basement with a soldering iron and a half-dead radio from the thrift shop, trying to make it breathe again. I liked the hum of old circuits, the puzzle of it. While Brandon was at wrestling camp, I was learning to code on a computer Dad brought home from a job site demolition. My parents didn't get it. I'd come into the kitchen covered in dust, excited about something I'd programmed. "Hey Mom, I just built a website that tracks inventory for small businesses," I'd say, and she'd go, "That's nice, Charlotte," without even looking up from her Better Homes and Gardens magazine. Then it was, "Did you hear Brandon might get a wrestling scholarship?" Or, "Rachel's parents are so proud of him." Rachel was Brandon's girlfriend since sophomore year. Blonde ponytail, perfect teeth, head of student council. She used to smile at me when she came over, but never said more than hi. I don't blame her. I wasn't part of their world. Even when I got into MIT, full-ride computer science scholarship, Dad didn't blink. "Massachusetts is far," he said. "You sure you wouldn't rather stick closer to home like Brandon did? He's already learning the business. Could use your help with the books." That was the first time I realized they didn't see me. Not really. At family dinners, I'd talk about my classes or the apps I was developing. And within 10 seconds, Mom would cut in. "Oh, Brandon is thinking of expanding into commercial projects. He's so good with clients." Every damn time. And somehow I always ended up clearing dishes while Brandon held court about his latest wrestling match or construction bid. They forgot my birthday once. I was 21. Called home and Mom said, "Oh no, was that today?" She promised to make it up to me, but it never came. What did show up a few weeks later was a Christmas card with a photo of Brandon, Rachel, and their engagement announcement. No note, just the card. I kept it. Not because I cared, but because it reminded me how easy it was for them to leave me out. Years later, I'd hear my parents telling people Brandon took over the family business. He stayed local, built something real. They never mentioned what I was doing. Not the company I was building, not the contracts I was landing, not the teams I was leading. Just silence. I remember once flying back for a family barbecue. I was already running my first startup, scrambling to make payroll every week, surviving on 3 hours of sleep. I brought Mom a handmade pottery vase I'd picked up in Santa Fe. "Thought of you when I saw it," I said. She set it on the counter and immediately started talking about Brandon's latest project, like I wasn't even there. Those years stacked up, little cuts that built into something heavier. I didn't say much. Just kept working. Built my own life in pieces. Moved city to city. Slept in studio apartments. Never missed a holiday at home, but never really felt home either. And no matter how far I got, how much I achieved, I stayed that kid in the basement. The other one, the quiet one, the one they never bragged about. By the time I turned 26, I was sleeping on an air mattress in a one-bedroom apartment off Burnside Street in Portland. Water stains on the ceiling, heater that coughed like it was dying, no dishwasher. I'd eat ramen 4 nights a week and spend the other 3 debating whether I could afford groceries. Didn't matter. I was building something. I was doing freelance web development just to keep the lights on and coding at night, sketching out software that could streamline inventory management for independent retailers. At the time, it sounded boring. Nobody cared about that kind of stuff until their shelves were empty and customers were walking out. But I saw it coming. Small businesses were drowning in spreadsheets and guesswork. All it took was one supplier delay, and they'd lose customers to Amazon. I worked 16-hour days, lost track of weekends, missed birthdays, broke up with a guy who wanted me to be more balanced, and drank way too much convenience store coffee. I failed twice. Once because I trusted the wrong business partner, the second time because we tried to scale too fast and nearly lost everything. But I didn't miss payroll. Not once. My team stuck with me because they knew I'd starve before I let them go hungry. It wasn't just a job. We were building something that mattered. When small retailers started struggling against big box stores, they called us. Suddenly, everyone needed what we had. Real-time inventory tracking that could predict demand cycles. We could help a boutique in Bend anticipate their summer rush and a hardware store in Eugene avoid overstocking before winter hit. We were the invisible heroes, background players keeping Main Street alive. By year 3, we were managing systems for over 200 small businesses across the Pacific Northwest. I didn't sleep. I was living on adrenaline, code, and take-out Thai food. Then came the offer. A Fortune 500 company wanted to acquire us. At first, I thought it was spam. But the numbers were real. So was the wire transfer. When the contracts were signed, I had more money in my account than I'd ever imagined. Enough to retire young if I wanted to. Enough to disappear. So I did. I bought an estate, 42 acres outside Bend, Oregon. Secluded, mountain air, room to breathe. I didn't tell a soul. It was just me and a contractor I trusted. No architects with fancy degrees, no developers trying to maximize profit margins. Just a blank stretch of land, pine trees thick as a forest, and the sound of wind through the peaks. We spent 14 months on it. Post and beam construction, vaulted ceilings, stone fireplace you could park a car in. A great room with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto the lake I had excavated and stocked with base. Every window was positioned to catch sunrise light. The kitchen had custom counters made from live-edge walnut slabs we sourced right there in Oregon. I hand-picked every piece of it. Not for show, for peace. People think money changes you. It doesn't. It reveals what you were chasing before you had to count every dollar. For me, that was quiet control, something that couldn't be taken, dismissed, or forgotten. No one in my family knew. Not my parents, not Brandon, not even my cousins. I wasn't hiding it out of spite. I just didn't owe them the update. This wasn't about finally impressing them. It was about building something they couldn't ignore. And maybe, if I'm honest, something they couldn't take credit for. That night, after I sent that one-word reply to my mom, I poured a glass of wine and stared out my office window. The city lights looked like scattered diamonds against black velvet. My phone sat next to me, buzzing every now and then with some email or calendar alert I didn't care about. I opened my contacts and scrolled to Natalie, my cousin on Dad's side. She and I weren't best friends, but she was solid, level-headed, always straight with you. I hit call. She picked up on the third ring. Hey girl, what's up? You get invited this year? I asked. There was a pause. Nope. Brandon's immediate family only. That's what Aunt Linda said. First time in 25 years they're not doing the big gathering. We're staying home. I leaned forward in my chair. They did it to everyone. Yes, she said. Even Grandma Rose. She called me yesterday upset. Nobody else got an invite. My jaw clenched. This wasn't just about me anymore. They'd cut the entire extended family out like deadweight just to make room for Brandon and his perfect little nuclear family show. You want to do something else? I asked. I mean, somewhere better. Where? Everything's booked solid. I've got a place, I said. Big enough for 40 people. She went quiet. You serious? Yeah, I said. Oregon. Lodge in the mountains. You get here, I'll take care of everything else. She let out a low whistle. Damn, Charlotte. Okay, let me talk to David. Within 30 minutes, she texted back. We're in. By the next morning, I had 12 RSVPs. Then came more. For cousins said they'd bring their families. Uncle Pete offered to smoke a brisket. Aunt Grace wanted to know if she could bring her famous pecan pie. But it was Grandma Rose's call that sealed it. She didn't even say hello, just tell me when to pack, honey. That hit me harder than I expected. Because in all those years of being sidelined, I don't think anyone had ever asked to come to me for a holiday. They just assumed I'd show up and fit into whatever seat was left over. Not this time. I spent the next 3 days mapping out sleeping arrangements, booking nearby cabins, calling in favors. I didn't care what it cost. I wanted them all to be comfortable. I wanted it to feel like a real Thanksgiving, not some consolation prize gathering. Natalie texted again, you sure we're not imposing? I shot back, you're the guests of honor. She sent a heart emoji, then added, can't wait to see what you've built. Neither could I. Because for once, it wasn't about proving anything. It was about finally choosing who I wanted at my table. I flew out to Bend 4 days early, landed just as the sun was setting behind the Cascade Peaks. The mountains were painted gold and purple, and the air smelled like pine and snow. First thing I did was drive straight to the estate, windows down, letting it hit me. I'd really done this. My property manager, Jake, met me at the front steps with a tablet and a radio clipped to his belt. We're feeding 40, I told him. And I want it done right. Got it, he said. We already confirmed the caterer. You want appetizer stations or buffet style? Neither. I want family style. Big platters, full table, everyone together. We went room by room. Each guest bedroom got deep cleaned, fresh linens, welcome baskets with personal touches. Local whiskey and smoked salmon in Uncle Pete's room. Crossword puzzles and reading glasses in Aunt Grace's. Art supplies and coloring books for the kids. I didn't want anyone showing up and feeling like an afterthought. We hired a chef who specialized in Northwest cuisine. She brought her own cast iron skillets, said Grace before starting prep, and nearly teared up when I showed her the kitchen. By Tuesday, the guest cabins were stocked and ready, firewood split and stacked, hot apple cider warming on the stove. I made sure the great room had enough seating and tested the sound system for Grandma Rose's old Ella Fitzgerald albums. And on Thursday morning, they started arriving. First was Natalie driving a rented Suburban with David and their 3 kids. She stepped out, stared at the lodge and just said, "Holy hell." I grinned. "You made it." She shook her head, still looking up at the timber beams. "This is really yours. Every square foot." After that, it was like Christmas morning. Cousin Emma showed up with her new boyfriend, first time anyone had met him. He walked through the front door, mouth hanging open, and said, "I thought you were still doing computer stuff." I laughed. I was. Now I do this. Uncle Pete gave me a bear hug and whispered, "You always were the dark horse, kiddo." Aunt Grace cried when she saw her room and said, "Nobody's made me feel this special in years." I kept moving, greeting, pouring drinks, answering questions. Every face that came through that door reminded me how long it had been since any of us were treated like we mattered. By 4 o'clock, the house was alive. Kids building blanket forts in the loft, someone playing guitar on the deck, Emma's boyfriend starting a fire pit by the lake. You could hear laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings. Then we sat down to eat. The massive table filled the great room, candles flickering, platters passed hand to hand. No kids' table, no toast from Dad about family traditions, just all of us, equal welcome fed. The fireplace crackled behind us. The ceiling rang with clinking glasses and real conversation. I looked down the line and saw 40 people who'd been brushed aside just like I had, and not one of them looked bitter. They looked home. Halfway through dessert, Grandma Rose leaned over and tugged my sleeve. "Come here, Charlotte." I followed her out to the entry hall where it was quiet. She took my hands. "You gave us back Thanksgiving," she said. "We needed this more than you know. You could have shut us all out and nobody would have blamed you, but you opened your doors instead. That takes courage." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. Just squeezed my hands, then walked back in like nothing happened. I stood there for a moment, letting that settle. Not because I needed the praise, but because it felt like something had shifted. This wasn't Brandon's house or my parents' house. This wasn't a rented hall or a potluck in a church basement. This was mine. And for the first time in my life, they came to me. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke up to my phone buzzing non-stop on the nightstand. 8 missed calls from Mom, 4 from Dad, 1 text from Brandon that just said, "Heard about your thing. Interesting choice." No one said a word all year, and now suddenly they were all blowing up my phone like I'd committed some crime. I set it on the dresser and went downstairs. By then, most of the crew was already up, eating pancakes and drinking coffee. Natalie had mapped out a hiking trail around the lake. Aunt Grace was setting up a 1,000-piece puzzle. It felt like summer camp for adults. When they left for the hike, I finally grabbed a mug and slipped into the library. Wood-paneled walls, leather armchairs, picture window overlooking the water. I sat down, took a sip, and called Mom back. She picked up on the first ring. "Charlotte," she snapped. "Why didn't you tell us? Everyone's talking about your house, your party. Even Pastor Williams mentioned it during announcements this morning." I didn't flinch. "You said you were keeping it small, so I made other plans." "That wasn't about you," she said quickly. "We just thought you'd be busy with work, and Brandon's family was easier to coordinate." "So you cut out the entire extended family?" She exhaled hard, like I was being unreasonable. "You're making this bigger than it is." From the next room, I heard Grandma Rose's chair creak by the fire, then her voice, "Put them on speaker, honey." I didn't hesitate. Hit the button. "What's this about?" Dad's voice came through. Grandma Rose didn't wait. "Robert, Linda, you've ignored this girl her whole life. Acted like she was some quiet problem you didn't know how to handle. Now you're shocked she built something without you? Be grateful she still included the family." Dead silence. I leaned forward, not saying a word. Grandma Rose kept going. "You ever think maybe if you'd made space for her at your table, you'd be at hers now?" More silence. Then Dad muttered, "That's not fair." "No," she cut in. "What's not fair is how she got treated all these years." Mom finally spoke again, voice smaller now. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Then listen for once," Grandma Rose said. "This isn't about one dinner. It's about who you choose to see." I let the weight of it hang in the air. They didn't argue back. Didn't apologize either. Just sat there, probably trying to figure out how to spin it. I ended the call without another word, set the phone down, leaned back, and stared out at the lake. And for the first time in years, I felt something shift, like a knot that had been sitting in my chest since I was a kid had finally started to loosen. After I hung up that call, I didn't touch my phone for the rest of the day. Let the cousins hike, let Grandma Rose nap by the fire, let the kids build snow forts in the yard. I just let it all breathe. No more noise. No more explaining. That night, I cracked open a bottle of local Pinot and sat on the back deck, feet up on the railing, watching the sky go black behind the mountain ridge. Then the texts started. First one was from Brandon. No greeting, no punctuation, just, "Didn't expect that but I get it." I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to tell him it was too little, too late. Next day, Mom sent one, "Can we visit sometime? Just us." Then Dad saw pictures. "Looks nice. Proud of you." No question mark, no follow-up, just tossed out like a comment on the weather. I didn't answer right away. Let it sit. Some things didn't need instant replies. Some things deserved space. But when Grandma Rose asked if she could stay another week, I wrote back immediately, "Stay as long as you want." She smiled from her chair by the fireplace and said, "That spot has my name on it now." I told Jake to keep her room warm and make sure the kitchen stayed stocked with her favorite ginger cookies. Over the next week, messages kept rolling in from cousins. "Next year too. Best Thanksgiving we've had in years. We're in if you are." None of them mentioned Brandon. No one asked where my parents were. They didn't need to. This wasn't about who wasn't there anymore. It was about who showed up. Natalie called me one evening. "You know what you did, right?" "What?" "You shifted the whole thing. Took the holiday and flipped it. We used to just show up because it was tradition. This actually felt like family." That landed deeper than she probably meant it to. Because all my life, I'd been orbiting their table, showing up out of obligation, trying to belong in a space that never saw me. Now I wasn't chasing that seat anymore. I was building something different, something that looked like me, felt like me. And the people who got it, who felt it, that was the only family I needed. Christmas rolled around, and for the first time in years, I invited my parents and Brandon's family back. Just them. No extended family, no cousins, no aunts and uncles. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wanted to see if they could meet me where I was now. They showed up a few days before Christmas Eve, all packed into Brandon's truck, looking like they were driving into foreign territory. I met them at the door. Brandon stepped out first, just like I knew he would. That look on his face, a little skeptical, a little impressed, but mostly distant. "You really built all this?" he asked, looking up at the lodge, then back at me. "Every square foot," I said. No pride, no apology. Just fact. Mom and Dad didn't say much at first, just glanced around like they didn't know where to put their eyes. I watched them, the tension in their shoulders, the way they couldn't quite settle into the space, like they didn't belong here, like I didn't belong in their world anymore. We had dinner in the great room. No fancy place settings, just family-style platters, prime rib, roasted vegetables, a few bottles of wine. The conversation started slow, like we were all strangers trying to find common ground. But then it started shifting. We talked, really talked. No small talk, no weather reports, no Brandon dominating the conversation about construction projects. We went deep about business, about resentment, about all the times I'd shown up and still felt invisible. It wasn't easy, but they listened. Brandon didn't say much, he'd never been the talker. I figured he was just processing it all, figuring out where he fit into this new version of me. After dessert, when everyone was getting ready to leave, Brandon pulled me aside. Didn't say a word at first, just stuck out his hand. I shook it, and before I could pull away he said, "You did good, Charlotte. Real good." It wasn't much, but it was enough. They left later that evening, Dad shaking my hand, Mom giving me a real hug this time. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. That night, I stood by the window in the great room, watching fresh snow fall. It was thick and heavy, blanketing everything in white. I could hear the wind outside and the crackle of the fire behind me. For once, I wasn't bitter. I wasn't wishing they'd been different, or that I'd been different, or that things had gone another way. I was just damn glad I'd finally shown them who I really was. New Year's Eve, I stood on the dock behind the lodge, wine in one hand, the other shoved deep in my coat pocket. The wind was sharp off the lake, cutting through the layers, but I didn't care. Stars stretched clean over the water, no city lights to wash them out. I just stood there and breathed it in. Didn't feel like the end of a year. Felt like the end of something bigger. I thought about that kid in the basement back in Laramie, the one with burnt fingers from soldering irons, listening to her parents brag about Brandon winning another match. That kid used to stare at code on a screen and wonder if any of it would matter, if she'd ever be more than a footnote in someone else's family story. She didn't know it back then, but she was laying the groundwork. Now I had 42 acres to my name. A sold company, a family chat that actually included me, a life that looked like mine, not the one I was told to settle for. The cousins were already planning in the group thread. Thanksgiving 2.0, cabin assignments, who's bringing what? It was turning into a tradition. A real one. Grandma Rose calls me twice a week now. Not just to check in, sometimes just to talk. She said she sleeps better up here, that the fireplace is her new favorite sound. And Mom sent me a recipe last week. Apple crisp, folded up in a card that said, "Thought you might want something from home." I read it twice. Not sure if it was an apology or just a peace offering. Either way, I kept it. Maybe things will get better with them. Maybe not. They might slide back into old patterns next year. They might not come at all. But here's the difference. I'm not waiting for a seat anymore. I built my own damn table. And it's big enough for anyone who's ever made me feel seen. That's the rule now. Show up or don't. But the door is open. No more chasing approval. No more hoping someone finally notices. Just me, living the life I built, on my terms. I raised my glass toward the lake. The wind howled, and I smiled into it. "Here's to the girl in the basement," I said out loud. "You made it."